So guys, I'm building a game with AI, one episode at a time. Gemini got the first 30 days, and ChatGPT now has the next 30, and Claude will be our final AI with the final 30 days of development. Same game, three AIs and 90 episodes. Fingers crossed. Let's see who builds it the best. So if you've seen the last one, we basically left off with this animation and we had a rectangular border in our sprite sheet here. So before I began this episode, I pretty much just cleaned out the edges so that the rectangles at the edge of the sprite sheets are not visible. So this is what our animation looks like right now. Okay, let's click on our explosion effect and play. This is our animation as of now. And here I got my ChatGPT pulled up so we can just begin building from here. So we've covered up to this point and also up to here. The only thing left to do is to build a prefab out of this explosion effect that we have. So all I'll do is go back to our assets folder and our prefabs folder and drag and drop this explosion effect so that we can have an animated explosion in our game. And now let's start working on our weapon system. So we're going to create this in EnergyProjectile.prefab. And so this should be just these 7 steps and that script over there. So just watch me go through those steps. We're going to create an empty game object and we're working in our sandbox environment. This should be named Energy Projectile and add a sprite renderer. And we're going to assign one of the smaller circular energy sprites. So I'll go back to our art effects explosion. And from here, maybe I'll pick this one as the sprite. I don't know why I'm still seeing the circle there. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong. Maybe I picked the wrong sprite. I should have picked something from here, so let's do that. Let's go with this one, maybe. Yeah, this looks much better without those borders. It works out well because I can demo what I meant by those rectangular shape outside the. Well, it's more like a square outside the circle. But anyway, we have our projectile. And we're gonna scale to around 0.25 x and y and adjust visually. So this is kind of too small for in relation to our player. So I'll do 0.5 maybe. That's kind of too big actually. So maybe 0.35 and 0.35. Still kind of big. Maybe I'll do 3. I think this one, you know what, 0.25 is actually not that bad now that I think about it. See, yeah, not terrible. But I think I'll go with a different sprite for this actually. I'll go with the one with a bit more explosion-y feel to it rather than just plain yellow. So I think this one looks better. Like these orange highlights, but again, let me play the game, see if we can see this. Game view, what's going on? This and this, I think, in terms of sizing, I think it looks okay. All right, so we can always adjust it later. For now, let's leave it at that. Add a circle collider 2D. So let's do a circle collider 2D. Enable is trigger and adjust its radius snugly around the visible orb. So radius should be around the orb. Let's see. Circle collider radius. I mean, if it does feel kind of snug around the, it'd probably go down just a little bit, maybe just 1.3 or 1.25. I mean, that looks pretty good. Um, a bit of offset on the Y, maybe -1. Nah, that's too much. -0. I mean, at this point, I think I'm overthinking it. It looks pretty snug, so let's leave it at that. Add a rigid body 2D. Rigid body 2D. Body type should be kinematic. Collision detection should be continuous. And interpolate should be interpolate. I create energy projectile.cs script. So we're going to go to our scripts folder, create scripting, and empty C# script, energy projectile. And let's open it up. And all I'll do is just copy and paste the code. All right, it's compiling, but just copy and paste and see what's going on here. So we got speed, we got lifetime. Um, we got our hit layers, our explosion effect prefab. We have our rigid body 2D, and a boolean has exploded. So awake function, all it does is find the rigid body 2D component. Start function, destroy projectiles that miss everything so they do not continue traveling forever or accumulate in memory. I think that's smart. Launch function, normalize makes the direction exactly 1 unit long, so speed remains consistent when firing left or right. So we're just setting the rigid body linear velocity, and then we're normalizing the direction that's being passed, and then we're multiplying it by the speed. On trigger enter 2D, ignore objects whose layer is not included in hit layers. This prevents coins, power-ups, and unrelated triggers from accidentally destroying the projectile. So that's a good idea again. And then we are ignoring everything that is a coin, power-up, or unrelated triggers, and otherwise we're exploding the projectile, calling the explode function. It checks if it's already exploded. If so, it does nothing. Otherwise, it sets has exploded to true. Um, explosion effect prefab. If it's set to null, then we instantiate it. And finally, we destroy the game object. So let's see. This looks good, pretty good to me. Save this. Wait for compiling. Yeah, all compiled. Now let's go to our energy projectile object here. And we're going to add component and then add our scripts, so energy projectile script. And once that's added, layers should be our ground layer. And then ExplosionEffect prefab. So this is where we drag in our prefab. Explosion effect. Or is it a, yeah, this is it, right? So this should be it. Explosion effect prefab. And speed is 12, lifetime is 3. Layer mask line looks complicated, but it simply asks, is the object we touched layer mask? Let's see what it's talking about. Layer mask, layer mask. Selected in the inspector. Hey, layers. Okay, let's try to find what's going on. Yeah, this line right here. So all it's doing is basically asking, is the object we touched on one of the layers selected in the inspector? Okay. And that should be it for now. We can turn this into a prefab as well. So let's drag and drop this. All set. And we got our energy projectile here as our prefab. Moving on to step 3, adding a firing point. So let's follow these steps. All right, so right click and we're gonna right click our player and do a create empty. And we're gonna rename this to fire point. Okay, fire points, give it a local position around X should be 0.6. 0.6, Y should be 0.05, and Z is 0. Adjusted so it sits out just outside the player's right side. So I think it does kind of sit outside the player's right side. So maybe the X should be a little bit lower in my opinion. Nah, that actually no. Maybe the Y should be a little bit lower. 0.3. I mean, actually, let's just go with what we have, and then we can adjust it later. Our point is only a position marker. It does not need any components, so sounds good to me. Because your player faces left using sprite rendered flip X, flipping the sprite does not move child objects. The firing script below manually. So okay, let me show you what I'm talking about here. Because our player faces left using sprite rendered flip X, flipping the sprite does not move the child objects. Gotcha. Okay, so child object in this case, we're talking about the fire point object there. And the firing script below manually mirrors this firing point when facing left. So we need to add this player shooting script. Okay, going back to our assets, scripts, and create scripting empty C# script. And this should be called players. No, caps is on player shooting. .cs. Player shooting. Open it up. And all I'm doing is pasting the script in here. Let's quickly go through it. So we got our energy projectile prefab. We got our fire point that we just created. We got fire cooldown and our sprite render and our next fire time. So assuming there's going to be like you can't shoot projectiles without any breaks, there should be like a bit of a pause there. Okay, awake function here. We're testing if projectile prefab is set and fire point is set. We're also initializing our sprite render on attack function. Started makes one projectile fire when the button is pressed instead of firing again when the button is released. Okay. So calling the fire function if context dot started is true. Um, Fire function timescale is 0 when paused, on game over or after level completion. So in these cases, do nothing. Prevent the player from firing faster than the cooldown allows. So if the time is before our next fire time, do nothing again. Prevent a null reference exception if something was not assigned. So if projectile prefab is null or fire point is null, do nothing. Fire time, we are adding the time. I assume this is the current time and then plus. So next fire time becomes our cooldown time plus time. Your player controller uses sprite render flip X to face left. Vector to shoot direction. So we're creating a new vector. Sprite render flip X. Okay. So this is, I assume, is just flipping the position of it depending on where the player is facing, left or right. Fire point marks the right side position. Mirror its local X position when player faces left. So okay, that's where this logic comes in. Local spawn position. So doing some math there. Convert the local firing point position into real world position. Okay. And then we're creating this projectile, energy projectile, calling the instantiate function there. And then we're passing our prefab, our position, and don't know what this is. Projectile.launch, shoot direction. So hopefully this does what it needs to do. I understood about maybe 70% of this code here. So, so don't blame yourself if you don't understand it, or if you do, if you're a Unity dev yourself, you probably know exactly what's going on. Okay, so saved it, and let's go back to Unity. All compiled there. So in the player inspector, assign projectile prefab, player projectile prefab. Where would that come from even? Firepoint? No. Attach the scripts to the player prefab, so we may have to bring that in here. Player shooting. Okay, all done. And projectile prefab. Yeah, I should probably do it on the prefab instead of the player object here. We can always apply it to the master prefab anyway. So projectile prefab should be energy projectile dot prefab player projectile prefab energy projectile dot prefab, and then we got fire points, should be the fire point child there, and fire cooldown should be 0.35. So 0.35 is set there, and apply the player prefab changes. All right, so let me override and apply all. So this should be updated there. All right, and now let's move on to step 5. Add the attack input. So we're going to follow all these steps. It's quite a lot of work for a weapon system, but could you imagine having to do this without AI? It would have taken forever. Um, Lots and lots of research time for this one. Anyway, look for an action named Okay, so first things first, open the input action asset used by your player input component. Input component, player input. Okay, this is it. Input actions, input action. Okay, right there. Look for an action named attack. Okay, where would I look for it? Attack, I don't see it. Open the input actions asset. Okay, let me just double click there. Okay, I do see attack here. Okay, attack, action type button, add a binding. So get binding should be path. Gamepad slash button west. That's what it's telling me to do. Button west. Okay, I already see it there. But if you don't, you can right click and then select add binding. Just accidentally discovered it by right clicking there. Add a binding. Okay, so the gamepad slash button west is there. Save the input action asset. So in my case, nothing to save because it's what did I even change? I don't think I changed anything, did I? I don't even see any changes, so nothing to save there. Chat the player's player input component. If its behavior is send messages, behavior is no, it's not. It's invoke Unity events, expand the attack event, and connect it to player. So if you see here, it's send messages. This one is selected, then the on attack should be found automatically, just like your existing on jump method. But otherwise, since mine is showing invoke Unity events, expand the attack event. So events, let me expand there and player maybe attack. Okay, I see it here. And connect it to player shooting dot on attacks. Click the plus. Do 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 I have to drag and drop the player shooting dot on attack? Expand the attack event and connect it to player shooting dot on attack. Okay. Plus, no, not plus, minus. Runtime editor and runtime, no. Runtime only. You know what? I'll try to just. Could I drag it from there? Dot on attack? No, I don't think so. Player shooting. Could I drag this thing and drop it on our player input? Okay, wrong place. Let's expand this. Player attack. Let's try again. Player shooting. Come on. The wrong thing. Right. Maybe here. Okay, so it looks like I was able to. And I can go from player shooting on attack. Oh no, I did it on the jump. Oh my god, I gotta undo a bunch of times. Where are we at? Player input. Okay, let's try one last time. Okay. Attack. Okay. So runtime. Here's where I need the player shooting script. So let's try one last time. Okay. Okay, runtime here. Cool. And player shooting dot on attack. Cool. So that should be good. No keyboard binding is being added. All right, now the last step, I think, yes, is add the Android Fire button. So gonna follow all these steps. Okay, so let's go to our mobile UI canvas prefab. So I'll just do it mobile UI canvas, this guy, prefab. And we're gonna duplicate the jump button, Control D, and we're gonna rename this to fire button, and change the text to fire. See, where's our text? Should be fire. I keep it anchored to the bottom right. So I think it is already. Yep. And we're going to position it beside or slightly above jump. So I think above makes more sense. I'll do the positioning for the button. Maybe 130 or 230 or even 280 maybe. All right, so looks good to me. And position it above jump and its on-screen button component. Change control path. So on-screen button control path should be button west. So button gamepad, then button west. Do not add a separate button on click event. The on-screen button feeds the virtual gamepad input directly into the attack action. This is still Android Touch input. The virtual gamepad is merely the input system's internal connection between your UI and player input. So if you want to read more, you can check out this documentation that ChatGPT linked, which is actually taking me to a Japanese page. So you gotta change it to English. But anyway, we're going to skip reading the documentation for now. But if you want, you can go to this link here. Let me know if you need it in the comments. All right. And that should be it. If your duplicated jump button does not have an on-screen button component, okay, that's irrelevant because it does. So now I think we're ready for some testing. Let's go back to our scene view. See our fire button there. Looks good to me. And now test these before moving to enemy combat. All right. Um, let's try it out. So time to test. All right, it's a little zoomed in. Saw something. Yeah, try again. Whoa. That's pretty cool. Anyway, the firing is way too big in my opinion, so we're gonna reduce the size. So what we're gonna do is energy projectile. This is where we should set this to maybe 0. Let's see, let's zoom in a little bit, maybe 0.15 instead of 2.5. Yeah, let's try with this. Oh, what the hell? It didn't, doesn't seem like it reduced down to 0.15 or, hmm, what's happening? Why did it not update? Let's even try lower. Nothing's changing other than that little projectile that's on the screen. So where do we need to set the updated projectile? I did a bunch of Control Z's to get the original shape. But which is the object? Maybe this one? Explosion effect. No, this can't be it. Explosion effect. Energy projectile. What if I do again 0.15, and then I do the apply all. Maybe this will fix it. Yep, exactly it. But you know what I wanted, at least a little bit of impact with gravity, but maybe we'll do that later. I kind of wanted to like kind of bounce like a ball. Anyway, this is okay for now. Oh, so facing right fires right. I think we just did that. Facing left fires left and spawns on the left. So I think that does that too. Fire spawns on the right. Fire spawns on the left. I think that looks good. Projectile explode when it touches terrain. Let's see. So we can try this terrain there. Yep. Looks good. Next one is it passes through coins or power-ups. So let's try. Coin's too high. Yeah, I think it passes through coins. Alright, and a missed projectile disappears after 3 seconds. So that's gonna be, we gotta start running. It's kind of hard to tell. Let's try again. Let's try again. I didn't miss. Okay, we might have to make this level a little bit bigger, so that we can run around. There's a main camera, or the camera bounds. Okay, so let's increase our camera bounds. Up to there, and then also on that side. Right here. Yep, here. And let's see. Grid tile map. I will just add a bunch of these tiles. So we have quite a bit of room to run around. Okay, fire. Why does it stop if you're gonna fire? That's super annoying. If you press the fire button, it stops. To be able to move, keep going. Right, so that's a major bug we gotta fix. Cool. Anyway, rapid tapping response respects the cooldown. It does. Firing does nothing while paused. Yeah, you can't even press it. So during game over after level completion, console remains clear. Yeah, nothing in the console. So we should be good. Projectile will not damage enemies yet. That is our next steps. So kind of held back on testing that, but let's see if nothing happens. The only annoying thing is player stops moving if you press this. So anyway, projectile doesn't damage enemies, and I think we can leave it here, and then we're gonna fix the moving problem and the collision or hitting enemies on the next one. All right, thanks for tuning in.